The call came at dawn. Static on the line, my former student's voice breaking through. Your son. A gang leader put him in the ICU. The cops are too scared to touch him. The words cut through me sharper than any bullet I dodged in Syria. My son. My blood. Crushed under someone who thought fear was enough to rule. Then the pause. The hesitation before truth. You trained me, but you're the only one who can end this. I looked around the safe house. Maps. Weapons. Young men waiting for my orders. Their war wasn't mine anymore. Not now. I packed one bag, not with clothes, only tools. Tools that didn't ask questions. Tools that ended questions. 12 hours later, I was in the belly of a cargo plane, metal vibrating beneath my boots, the desert night shrinking behind me. I whispered my objective to myself like a vow. They won't see the next sunset the moment I land. The hospital air reeked of antiseptic and despair. Machines beeped steadily around the bed where my son lay broken. Tubes, bruises, breathing shallow. His face barely recognizable under the swelling. I touched his hand, cold, fragile. My chest didn't ache, it calcified. A soldier doesn't cry. A father doesn't forgive. The nurses avoided my eyes. Too much truth lives in silence. My wife arrived an hour later. She didn't cry either. Her fear wasn't for our son, it was for me. She knew what silence meant in my mouth. I kissed my boy's forehead, but my mind was already moving, tracing the path from ICU lights to the alley where fists fell on him, from whispers of protection money to the man who thought he was untouchable. I had trained boys to topple tyrants, and one had grown here, in my own city, on my own soil. This wasn't just violence, it was betrayal. Not only by the gang leader who did this, but by every cop, every man who had looked away. I didn't storm the streets, not yet. First came the work, the quiet work, the kind no one sees until it's too late. Phone records, surveillance footage, the names of men who owed me favors. Every piece fit the puzzle tighter, sharper, until his face stared back at me. A local king in a city of cowards. Gold chains, rented loyalty, blood-soaked reputation. They whispered his name like a prayer, afraid to say it too loud. I studied him the way I studied maps of enemy compounds. Patterns of movement, weak points, the cracks in his armor disguised as arrogance. Every night I returned to my son's bedside. My silence made my wife's hands shake. She asked no questions. She didn't want the answers. Inside me, two men lived. The soldier, the father. But in truth, they were the same man. One night I received the final piece, a photograph. The gang leader laughing in a bar, arm around a woman. Not just any woman, my wife's sister. Family. The betrayal wasn't just on the streets, it was inside the walls of blood. He hadn't just put my son in the ICU. He had threaded himself into my family, protected by her silence. I sat across from my wife, slid the photo across the table. Her face drained of color, lips parted. No words came. She didn't need to explain. I already knew. She had kept it from me. Out of fear, out of shame. I stayed calm, because calm was worse than rage. I didn't hunt him with noise. I didn't need bullets in alleys or fire in the streets. I dismantled him the way you dismantle an empire, one piece at a time. First, his money, accounts frozen by hands that owed me debts. Then his soldiers, arrested in sweeps no cop had dared attempt until whispers of my return spread. His name stopped sounding like fear. It started sounding like failure. Finally, I walked into the hospital where his own mother worked as a cleaner. I left the file on her desk, evidence of every crime, every corpse tied to her son. Her scream was the sound of his dynasty collapsing. He didn't die that night. He died slowly, stripped of power, stripped of myth, stripped of everything that made him untouchable. And he knew who had done it. Weeks later, my son opened his eyes. He whispered one word, "Dad." That was enough. I never told him what I did. He didn't need to know. He didn't need the weight I carried. The gang leader's empire lay in ruins. My sister-in-law vanished into the shadows of her shame. My wife pretended not to know how close the world had come to burning. And me? I stood in the doorway of my son's room, watching him breathe, knowing the truth. I hadn't saved him with violence. I had saved him with patience, with silence, with the kind of revenge that doesn't stain your hands, only the soul of your enemy. I walked away colder, harder, but also freer, because now I knew some wars don't end on foreign soil. Some wars come home, and when they do, I don't lose.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Subscribe now to Cheating Stories Insight World for more amazing stories.